Welcome to our channel, your gateway to the most spine-chilling tales and unnerving true stories. Today, we present a true story, the expedition to haunting Atacama. The year is 1985, and the Atacama Desert stretches out before Diego and his team of geologists like a vast, unforgiving sea of sand. They are here on a mission to locate and survey and tap mineral deposits that could potentially revolutionize the mining industry. Diego, a seasoned Chilean explorer with a deep respect for the desert and its history, leads the expedition with a steady hand. Their journey begins with a long, dusty trek across the arid landscape, their heavy backpacks weighing down their shoulders as they trudge forward under the relentless sun. Diego periodically stops to take readings from his Geiger counter, his gaze fixed on the dial as he searches for any signs of radioactivity that might indicate the presence of valuable ore. As the day wears on, they stumble upon an ancient mining town, long abandoned and forgotten. The buildings, once proud and sturdy, now stand as crumbling ruins, their windows gaping like empty sockets. Diego's heart sinks. He knows that this place holds no mineral wealth, but the team's morale is low, and they are desperate for shelter. Against his better judgment, he agrees to make camp within the town's ruins for the night. The team settles in, setting up tents and gathering wood for a fire. The air is thick with a sense of foreboding, and as darkness falls, strange whispers and footsteps echo through the empty streets. At first, Diego attributes these sounds to the howling wind and the creaking of ancient timbers, but as the night wears on, he begins to suspect that something else is afoot. As he sits by the fire, keeping a wary eye on his team, Diego recalls the stories he's heard about this place. According to legend, the town was founded by a group of Spanish conquistadors who had been driven out of South America by the Incas. They came to the Atacama seeking riches in the form of gold and silver, but instead found a vein of ore that was unlike anything they had ever encountered. The ore was incredibly radioactive, and it poisoned the minds of those who worked with it, driving them insane. In desperation, they sealed off the town and abandoned it, hoping to contain the horror they had unleashed. Diego shivers as a chill wind sweeps across the ruins, rustling through the tatters of old flags that still flutter in the breeze. He knows that his team is not prepared for what they may encounter tonight, and he can't help but wonder if they've made a terrible mistake. As he stares into the dancing flames, he resolves to keep his team safe no matter the cost. The night wears on, and the whispers and footsteps grow louder, more insistent. Diego rouses his team, urging them to gather around the fire for protection. They exchange nervous glances, but they know that Diego is their only hope. As the ghostly procession draws closer, the air grows thick with the stench of rotting flesh and the sound of labored breathing. Diego tenses, his muscles coiled like springs, ready to defend his crew at a moment's notice. And then, out of the shadows, emerges a figure. It is a man, or rather, what was once a man. His skin is a sickly green, and his eyes glow with an unnatural light. He wears the tattered remains of a miner's uniform, stained with blood and encrusted with glowing ore. In his skeletal hands, he holds a pickaxe, its head stained with the residue of long-forgotten mining. The apparition raises its arms, and from its mouth pours a torrent of words in a language long dead. Diego, the only one who understands the ancient tongue, translates for his terrified team. "You have disturbed our rest," the creature says, its voice a raspy croak, "and now you must pay the price." The other ghostly figures emerge from the darkness, surrounding the team. They close in, their putrid breath washing over them like a malodorous tide. As Diego stands his ground, he feels a strange sense of calm wash over him. He knows that he is about to die, but he also knows that he must protect his crew. With a final, defiant shout, he charges forward, swinging his Geiger counter like a club. The device connects with the lead ghost's skull with a sickening crunch, and the creature collapses to the ground, its unnatural light flickering and dying. The other ghosts falter, their momentum broken. They writhe and moan in pain, their bodies dissipating like mist in the sunlight. As the last of them vanishes, the town falls silent once more. Diego turns to his team, his face etched with grief and determination. "Let this be a lesson to us all," he says, his voice barely audible above the wind. "Never again will we disturb the peace of the dead." With that, they gather their belongings and continue on their journey, forever haunted by the memory of what they have seen. But Diego carries something else with him as well. A newfound respect for the ancient spirits of the desert, and a deep-seated fear of the untold horrors that lurk beneath its seemingly endless sands. The team of geologists, led by Diego, had been trekking through the harsh and unforgiving landscape of the Atacama Desert for weeks, searching for mineral deposits to make their careers and their fortunes. The relentless sun, shimmering mirages, and arid air made each step a struggle, but their determination and the promise of discovery kept them going. Until, on this particular day, they stumbled upon an ancient mining town, long forgotten and left to rot in the unforgiving desert. Against his better judgment, Diego allowed the team to make camp within the ruins of the town for the night. As dusk fell, they set up their tents, gathered around a small fire, and began to share stories of their lives back home. But as the shadows lengthened and darkness crept in, they began to hear whispers in the wind, see flickering lights dancing through the ruins, and feel an inexplicable sense of unease settling over them. The night wore on, and the haunting grew more intense. Footsteps echoed through the empty streets, lanterns flickered and died, and ghostly figures flitted past their tents. Fearful whispers turned to terrified screams as the ghosts of the long-dead miners seemed to close in on them. Diego tried to reassure his team, insisting that it was merely a case of superstition and nerves, but even he could feel the weight of the town's dark history pressing down upon them. The next morning, Diego decided to explore the town further, hoping to find some clue as to what was causing the haunting. As he wandered through the empty streets, he came across an old, weathered journal, its leather cover worn thin with age. With a shaky hand, he opened it and began to read. "The water is our curse. We dug too deep and awakened something we should not have. Now, it haunts us. Every drop we try to bring to the surface is tainted. We are dying, one by one. There is no escape. We will be damned to wander these halls, forever searching for the elusive water that will set us free." Horrified, Diego realized the truth behind the haunting. The miners had suffered from a catastrophic water shortage, and in their desperation, had dug too deep, awakening something malevolent that now haunted them for all eternity. He showed the journal to the rest of the team, and they all shared a silent, mutual understanding of the terror they were facing. As they continued their investigation, they discovered an old well, its walls lined with the bones of those who had perished. The air was thick with despair and hopelessness, and the ghosts seemed to grow more aggressive with each passing moment. The team huddled together, clinging to each other for comfort and strength, as they prepared to face whatever horrors awaited them in the depths of the well. Diego reached into his pocket and drew out a small, flickering lantern. Its dim light cast eerie shadows across the grim faces of his team members. Taking a deep breath, he nodded to one of the geologists, who reached out and grasped the rope that disappeared into the darkness. With a shaky hand, he began to lower himself into the well, the lantern casting a wavering beam of light onto the bones that littered the ground below. The others watched in horror as Diego descended deeper and deeper into the well, the ghosts swirling around him like malevolent shadows. After what seemed like an eternity, he finally re-emerged, his face pale and his hands trembling. He clambered out of the well and collapsed onto the ground, gasping for air. It's worse than I imagined," he panted. "The water, it's tainted. It's filled with something, dark and twisted. We have to get out of here, now. We have to leave this place behind us." But as they tried to gather their belongings and prepare to leave, the ghosts seemed to sense their intentions. They surrounded the group, their whispers growing louder and more insistent. In desperation, Diego grabbed the lantern and began to run, the others close on his heels. They raced through the empty streets, the ghosts closed behind them, their icy fingers brushing against their skin. Finally, they reached the edge of the desert, where their vehicles waited. With a final burst of energy, they threw open the doors and climbed inside, slamming them shut behind them. But as they sped away from the haunted mining town, they could still hear the whispers of the damned, their eternal tormentors. The ghosts of the Atacama Desert would continue to wander the earth, forever searching for the water that would grant them peace. And the team of geologists, their lives forever changed by the horrors they had witnessed, knew that they could never truly escape the curse of the tainted water. They could only hope to outrun it, for as long as possible. The wind howled through the desolate landscape of the Atacama Desert, its icy breath carrying with it the faint whispers of the long dead. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the ancient ruins of the abandoned mining town. The team of explorers, led by the Chilean geologist Diego, huddled together for warmth, their faces etched with fear and determination. They had come to this forsaken place in search of mineral deposits, but now found themselves trapped in a nightmare of unexplainable terrors. The previous night's events still haunted their dreams. Ghosts had materialized from the shadows, their whispers echoing through the empty streets like the distant wail of a lost soul. Lanterns had flickered and died, casting the town into perpetual darkness. The sound of miners' footsteps had resounded through the ruins, as if they were still toiling away beneath the surface, trying desperately to escape the living hell they had created for themselves. Diego, his face etched with lines of exhaustion and fear, addressed the group. "We need to find out what's happening here," he said, his voice barely audible above the wind. "We can't just abandon our equipment and run." He gestured toward a crumbling adobe structure, its doors and windows boarded shut, as if to keep something in or out. "I found an old journal buried beneath one of those boards. It details the history of this place. Maybe it can shed some light on what we're dealing with." The others nodded in agreement, their faces pale and drawn. They helped Diego pry the board from its hinges and reveal the ancient tome. As they gathered around, the wind died down, as if nature itself was holding its breath. The pages were yellowed and fragile, their edges curled with age. The script was written in a language they didn't recognize, but Diego's knowledge of local folklore told him it was an ancient dialect of the Quechua language. It didn't take long for them to decipher the journal's horrifying tale. Centuries ago, this town had been a thriving center of mining activity, but a catastrophic water shortage had led to the deaths of hundreds of miners, their bodies left to rot in the unyielding soil. Desperate for a solution, the survivors had turned to dark magic, summoning spirits from the depths of the underworld to aid them in their struggle against the elements. The rituals had worked. At first, the spirits had guided them to a hidden underground lake, sustaining them for years. But their newfound power had come at a terrible cost. The spirits were not benevolent guardians, but malevolent beings that fed on fear and despair. And as the years passed, the spirits grew ever more cruel and vengeful, punishing the living for their trespasses against the natural order of things. Shivering with fear and revulsion, the team considered their options. They knew they couldn't simply abandon their equipment and flee, as the spirits would only grow stronger and more dangerous. They needed to find a way to appease them, to send them back to whatever hellish realm they had crawled from. Diego, ever the scholar, proposed a makeshift seance, using his knowledge of local folklore to contact the spirits and try to negotiate with them. The others nodded, their faces pale and drawn. They helped Diego set up the ritual, arranging candles and sacred objects around a large, ornate stone altar. The air grew thick with tension and anticipation as they waited for the spirits to manifest. And then, as if in answer to their unspoken pleas, the candle flames flickered and died, plunging the chamber into darkness. A malevolent presence filled the air, a cold wind that seemed to emanate from the very earth itself. The team felt their skin crawl as if 1,000 invisible eyes were watching them, boring into their very souls. And then, without warning, the spirits launched themselves at Diego, throwing him violently against the altar. He cried out in pain as he impacted the ancient stone, impaling himself on the shards of bone that lined its base. Blood gushed from his mouth and nose, staining the sand around him. The others screamed in terror, turning and fleeing from the accursed place. They abandoned their equipment and their fallen comrade, running for their lives through the desolate wasteland. As they stumbled away from the ruins, they glanced back over their shoulders, expecting to see the spirits in pursuit. But the spirits did not follow. Instead, they remained behind, feasting on the fear and despair that still hung thick in the air, sustaining themselves until the next poor souls were foolish enough to venture back into their domain. And so the cycle of terror and desperation continued, as the spirits of the Atacama desert lingered on, waiting for another group of unsuspecting explorers to unwittingly unleash their wrath upon the world. The surviving members of the team returned to Santiago, haunted by the events that transpired in the Atacama desert. They tried to piece together what could have caused the haunting, but each of them carried a different memory of the horrors they had witnessed. The team struggled to sleep, plagued by nightmares of ghostly whispers and flickering lanterns. They knew they had to tell someone, but the fear of being branded as crazy or disbelieved held them back. Days turned into weeks, and the team began to drift apart. Some members found solace in alcohol, while others retreated into themselves, unable to shake the feeling that they were being watched. The only thing they could agree on was that they could never return to the Atacama desert. One night, as the team gathered at a local bar, they noticed a newspaper article about a recent earthquake in the region. The quake had hit near the abandoned mining town where they had found the hidden journal and uncovered the well filled with human bones. As they discussed the article, a chill ran down their spines, and they knew that something was terribly wrong. Desperate to understand what had happened, they decided to return to the site of their ordeal. The journey was long and arduous, but they felt compelled to confront their demons. As they approached the abandoned town, they could feel the tension building within the group. No one spoke, as they were all too aware of the malevolent presence that seemed to lurk around every corner. They made camp outside the town limits, unable to bring themselves to enter the eerie silence that seemed to emanate from within. That night, they gathered around a makeshift fire, trying to relive the events that had transpired in the hopes of finding some kind of answer. Diego's death still haunted them, and they knew that they had to find out what had really happened. One of the members, a historian, pored over Diego's journal, searching for any clue that might explain the haunting. As he read, his eyes widened in horror. The journal had mentioned an ancient ritual performed by the original miners, one that was meant to appease the spirits of the earth. But something had gone terribly wrong, and the ritual had backfired, trapping the souls of the dead in an eternal cycle of suffering. The team knew they had to put an end to it. They decided to perform the ritual in reverse, hoping to release the trapped souls and end the haunting once and for all. They gathered around the well, digging through the bones until they found a small, hidden chamber. Inside, they discovered an ancient artifact, a small, intricately carved obsidian figure. As they placed the figure back in its rightful place, they felt a sudden shift in the air. The whispers died down, and the flickering lanterns grew steadier. The malevolent presence that had haunted them for weeks dissipated, leaving them free to leave the abandoned town. The team returned to Santiago, forever changed by their experiences. They knew they could never speak of what they had seen and done, for fear of unleashing a new wave of hauntings and tragedies. They would carry the weight of their secrets to their graves, but at least they had brought peace to the lost souls of the Atacama Desert. And perhaps, in the end, that was the only thing that truly mattered. Decades have passed since the fateful expedition into the Atacama Desert, and the surviving members of the team have scattered across the globe. Some have gone on to successful careers, while others have fallen into obscurity. But one thing remains constant: the haunting memories of their time in the ancient mining town. The horrors they witnessed and the secrets they uncovered have left an indelible mark on their lives, a permanent reminder of the fragility of the human experience. The town of Atacama, now known as the City of Ghosts, has become a popular destination for thrill seekers and paranormal investigators. Tourists flock to the abandoned ruins, eager to experience the chill of fear that seems to permeate every crack and crevice. They listen to the guides' tales of the doomed miners and the malevolent spirits that are said to haunt the place, unaware of the true depths of the town's dark history. For the survivors, the memories are all too real. They see the ghosts in the shadows, feel the icy touch of unseen hands, and hear the whispers of the dead. They know that the city is not merely haunted, but cursed, and they fear that by telling their story, they might unleash a new wave of suffering and tragedy upon the world. Diego's daughter, now a respected geologist in her own right, often finds herself thinking about her father's final moments. She wonders if he truly died an accidental death, or if the malevolent presence that killed him was somehow set free. She feels a deep sense of guilt for not being able to save him, and for not being able to bring herself to return to the place where he died. Juan, the team's photographer, has spent years poring over his old negatives, searching for evidence of the supernatural occurrences they experienced. He has compiled a book of his findings, but has yet to publish it. He knows that the world is not ready to face the truth about Atacama, and that revealing it might have dire consequences. Pedro, the team's linguist, has dedicated his life to studying the ancient dialects of the region, hoping to uncover the secrets of the miners' culture and their eventual demise. He spends hours poring over dusty tomes in university libraries, desperate to understand the symbols and rituals he discovered in the abandoned town. Carlos, the team's engineer, has been plagued by nightmares since their return from Atacama. He sees the ghostly figures of the miners in his sleep, their pleading eyes burning into his soul. He has become a recluse, avoiding contact with the outside world and spending his days lost in memories of the past. As the years pass, the survivors of the Atacama expedition find themselves grappling with the consequences of their actions. They know that they cannot undo what has been done, and that the only way to find peace is to live with the knowledge that they left something or someone behind. They continue to struggle against the ghosts of their past, haunted by the memory of the city that claimed their innocence and shattered their lives forever. The sun beats down mercilessly on the Atacama Desert, its harsh glare reflecting off the barren landscape. A group of teenagers, their faces flushed from excitement and exertion, trudge through the sand, their eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of the ancient mining town they've heard so much about. Their backpacks are stuffed with supplies, their cameras at the ready. They're here to explore, to have an adventure, and to prove to themselves that they're not afraid of a little danger. As they trek deeper into the desert, the terrain becomes more rugged, the air grows cooler. The wind picks up, whistling through the canyons, carrying with it the distant echoes of whispers and footsteps. The teenagers exchange nervous glances but continue onwards, their curiosity overpowering any sense of unease. Finally, they catch sight of it, the ruins of an ancient town, hidden amidst the rocks and sand. The buildings are crumbling, their walls stained with the passage of time. But despite their dilapidated state, there's an air of mystery and allure about the place that draws the teenagers in like moths to a flame. They make camp within the town's boundaries, setting up tents and gathering around a crackling fire. The light flickers against the ruined walls, casting eerie shadows that dance and writhe like ghosts themselves. As the night wears on, the teenagers begin to share stories of the legend they've come to witness, their voices rising and falling in the darkness. It's then that they first hear the whispers. Soft at first, like the rustling of leaves, the whispers quickly grow louder, more insistent. They seem to be coming from everywhere at once. From behind the crumbling walls, from within the rubble-strewn streets. The teenagers exchange nervous glances, but none of them dare to admit that they're afraid. They drink more wine, laugh more loudly, trying to drown out the whispers. But the whispers only grow louder, more urgent. They begin to sound angry, accusing. The teenagers huddle closer together, their eyes darting around the darkness, searching for some sign of what might be causing the commotion. And then, from the shadows, a figure steps forth. It's the ghost of an old miner, his face twisted with rage and despair. He points a ghostly finger at them, his voice a hoarse, accusing growl. "You should not be here," he says, his voice echoing through the empty streets. "You don't belong in our town." The teenagers shrink back in fear, their hearts pounding in their chests. But it's too late, the damage has been done. One by one, they disappear, their bodies never found. The legend of Atacama continues to grow, as each new generation discovers the haunted town and pays the price for their curiosity. Years pass, and the ruins of the ancient mining town remain a haunted place, a testament to the tragic events that unfolded there long ago. The whispers still echo through the deserted streets, and the ghost of the old miner still patrols the ruins, ever vigilant against those who dare to trespass upon his domain. The world moves on, but the spirits of Atacama remain, forever trapped in the twisted web of history and legend that binds them to this forsaken place. The paranormal investigation team, led by their charismatic and seasoned leader, Dr. Emily Carson, arrived at the abandoned mining town of Atacama with high hopes and even higher expectations. The team, composed of experts in various fields such as sound engineering, cinematography, and parapsychology, had been preparing for this moment for months. Their mission was clear: to document and capture evidence of the town's infamous haunting on film. The sun set over the barren landscape of the Atacama Desert, casting a warm glow on the ruins of the ancient mining town. The team set up camp in the remains of what once was a thriving community, using tents and generators to create a makeshift base of operations. As night fell, the air grew cold and crisp, and the stars twinkled brightly in the inky black sky. Dr. Carson gathered her team around a crackling bonfire, their faces illuminated by its flickering light. "All right, everyone," she began, her voice steady and reassuring. "We've got our work cut out for us tonight. Let's make sure we're all on the same page. Our primary objective is to capture evidence of the paranormal activity reported here. But remember, we need to do it discreetly. We don't want to provoke whatever's haunting this place." The team nodded in agreement, their expressions a mix of excitement and determination. They split up into smaller groups, each taking charge of a different aspect of the investigation. One team set up cameras and infrared recorders throughout the town, carefully positioning them to capture any unexplained movements or sounds. Another team focused on the acoustics, setting up a network of microphones and audio recorders to pick up whispers or footsteps that might not be audible to the naked ear. As they worked, the atmosphere in the town began to shift. The air grew thick with anticipation and unease. The sound of creaking wood and rustling leaves seemed to echo through the empty streets, and the team found themselves constantly glancing over their shoulders, expecting to see something lurking in the shadows. Hours passed, and still nothing happened. The silence was deafening, and the team began to grow restless. They had expected more, hoped for more. Dr. Carson, however, remained calm and collected. She knew that in investigations like these, the quiet periods were often the most crucial. It was during these moments that the unseen forces were gathering their strength, preparing to make their presence known. Just as the team was about to call it a night, they heard it, a faint whisper, carried on the wind. It sounded like a distant voice calling out from the darkness. The investigators exchanged nervous glances, their hearts racing. Was it one of the town's ghosts, trying to communicate with them? Or was it just the wind, playing tricks on their minds? They followed the sound, moving cautiously through the ruins. The whisper grew louder, guiding them deeper into the heart of the town. They came to a dilapidated church, its stained glass windows boarded up and its doors hanging off their hinges. Inside, they heard the voice more clearly, as if it were coming from within the very walls. The team set up their equipment inside the church, hoping to capture the voice on film. They waited, hearts pounding, as the seconds ticked by. The air grew thick with anticipation, and the investigators could feel the hairs on the backs of their necks standing on end. Suddenly, there was a flash of light, and a disembodied voice filled the air. "Help me," it said, the words distorted and eerie. The team froze, their breath catching in their throats. They couldn't believe what they were hearing. Was it a ghost, a spirit trapped within the confines of the church? Or was it just an elaborate hoax designed to frighten them away? As they tried to make sense of the apparition, another figure materialized before them. It was a young girl, her features obscured by a flowing white dress. She seemed to be pleading with them, her eyes filled with terror and desperation. The team exchanged worried glances, unsure of what to do. Should they try to help her? Or was she somehow connected to the haunting? Their debate was cut short when the girl vanished, leaving them standing alone in the darkened church. The voice spoke once more, its tone chilling and cold. "You should have left us alone," it said. "Now you'll pay the price." The team froze, their hearts pounding in their chests. They could feel the weight of the girl's words pressing down on them, as if some unseen force were warning them to leave while they still could. But it was too late. They were already hooked. They had to know more. They had to uncover the truth about Atacama. As they packed up their equipment, Dr. Carson turned to her team and smiled reassuringly. "I think we're onto something here," she whispered. "Let's see where this leads us." Their next move was clear. They would continue their investigation, digging deeper into the mysteries of Atacama and its restless spirits. They would uncover the truth, no matter what they found. And along the way, they would discover that sometimes, the price of knowledge is far greater than anyone could have imagined. As the archaeological team carefully sifts through the rubble of Atacama, they uncover a hidden chamber buried deep beneath the town. The walls are adorned with intricate carvings and painted with symbols that seem to defy understanding. In the center of the room, a massive stone sarcophagus lies sealed shut, its surface etched with even more cryptic markings. The air in the chamber is thick with a sense of foreboding, and the team feels as if they are trespassing on sacred ground. The lead archaeologist, Dr. Maria Sanchez, calls for a moment of silence as they carefully pry open the sarcophagus. Inside, they find an ancient scroll, its parchment yellowed with age and protected by a delicate gold seal. With trembling hands, Dr. Sanchez breaks the seal and begins to unroll the scroll. As the parchment unfurls, they are met with a chilling sight. The scroll is filled with detailed illustrations and descriptions of a powerful ritual, one that was meant to trap the spirits of the dead miners. The team spends days poring over the scroll, debating its meaning and intent. They come to the conclusion that the ritual was meant to serve as a form of justice, a way to ensure that those who had died in the mining disaster would find peace and be allowed to move on. However, they also recognize that the ritual, if performed incorrectly or with malicious intent, could have catastrophic consequences. As they continue their work, the team begins to experience strange occurrences. They hear whispers in the night, footsteps that seem to echo through the empty streets, and the eerie sound of distant miners' lamps flickering in the darkness. At first, they brush these incidents off as mere superstition, but as they continue to uncover more artifacts and scrolls, it becomes clear that they have disturbed something ancient and powerful. One night, while they are sleeping in the makeshift camp they have set up within the town, a terrible scream rips through the air. They rush outside to find one of their team members, Dr. Emily Young, lying on the ground, her face twisted in terror. She is muttering incoherently about seeing spirits, and her eyes are filled with an unholy light. Before they can help her, she leaps to her feet and sprints into the darkness, disappearing without a trace. The team is shaken to their core by this event, and they know that they must leave Atacama immediately. They pack up their equipment and vehicles, promising to return with reinforcements and the necessary resources to safely excavate the site. But as they drive away from the town, they can't shake the feeling that they have unleashed something terrible, and that their actions have doomed not only themselves, but countless others as well. In the years that follow, stories of the haunted mining town of Atacama spread like wildfire, becoming the stuff of legend. Some believe it to be a warning from the past, a cautionary tale about the dangers of tampering with the supernatural. Others see it as a testament to the enduring power of vengeful spirits, and the price that must be paid for trespassing on their territory. But whatever the interpretation, one thing is certain: the spirits of Atacama will not be silenced, and those who dare to disturb their rest will suffer the consequences. Thank you so much for joining me on this cinematic journey. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. Have you experienced a spine-chilling horror that left you trembling? Share your terrifying tale with us by emailing nightmarenetwork@hotmail.com, and we'd be thrilled to feature it on our platform. Until next time, happy movie watching.